Okay, it's live streaming, so make sure you have your mics on.
Welcome to this October 10th, October HR and Business Services Committee meeting. We will be starting at 4:35. Did I say Tuesday? No, oh, never mind. We will be starting at 4:35. We have no guest presentations for this meeting, and we are going to move human resources reports until after business services. So we will start with the great news on our enrollment report. Executive Director Zunich.
Yes, I'm very pleased to announce that.
Your microphone, please.
Good evening. I'm very pleased to announce that our enrollments are up 8,136.37. We are up 203 from FY23 end of year. So this is very encouraging. And as we know, enrollments can go up and down all throughout the year, but for right now, we're very enthused by this.
This is great news, and we did have originally budgeted for 7,989, so we are coming at above our budgeted number. It's always good to exceed your budgeted number, not come below it, so that's excellent news. Thank you. Is there any questions about our enrollment report? Member Oswald, if you have a question, do you just want to shout? I can't see you right now.
I could turn that so you can see better.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, Superintendent Magus, so we can get Member
Yes,
Oswald.
I can shout, but do I need my microphone on too? I can't turn it on and off.
Oh, yeah, right? Just your little microphone on there. That's perfect. Thank you, Member Oswald. We're glad to see you. Moving on next to our Child Nutrition Departmental Report. Of note in this report is that our breakfast counts are up to 4,549. That's an increase of 240 a day. And our lunch counts are up to 15,014 lunches. That's up 790 per day. And as to be expected, our child nutrition staff are very busy, and they're looking forward to filling 10 open positions. So if you're interested, please apply. Looking at our free and reduced lunch numbers, this is our status of application for educational benefits. Is there anything of note in this report, Member Zunich?
No, there isn't.
Okay, great.
It's beginning, we hope to increase these numbers too as the month goes on.
It is important for our families to make sure that they have completed this application for educational benefits, as it does have a tie-in to state funding. I, in the Eater household, have completed that and made sure I talked to everybody around me to get that done as well.
I have a question about that.
Yes, Member Oswald.
Knowing that does the state still require that we have the forms turned in by October 1st to count for next year? And if so, can we get the number and a comparative to previous years?
Yes,
as to the status of the applications?
Yes, so yes to your answer. We still need to have families fill out this form. October 1 is the deadline, but we will continue to receive these forms all the way through. And I can get that number for you in comparison to years prior.
Sure. I'm concerned that, with the start of free school meals, that people are slacking and filling it out, and it's extremely important.
It sure is, yeah, and that's a valid concern. The sites have been doing a great job of continuing to speak to it, so we'll just continue to do that.
Thank you, Member Oswald. Moving on to Facilities Departmental Report. We have completed 370 work orders in the last month, and we're working on about 300. We have a slightly higher than average number of work orders open, and this is due to having our students back in our buildings. Some construction updates. Congdon Park Soccer Field's new gated entrance was completed in September. Move-in with network connectivity completed at the new lease space at the Arvig Building, and GMAX testing completed at Ordine East Middle School turf. We have some ongoing discussions with PSS Track Lane 1. We are waiting, the date for the closing of the sale on the former transportation building was October 6th. We have a tentative date to purchase the new DNT building, October 20th, and we have completed the lease of the United Healthcare Group in Titanium Partners as of September 30th. And we still have operational and licensing walkthrough at the fire department through our schools. Piedmont, Lormac, and Denfeld completed. East is coming up on the 24th. We still have some work coming up here on the Hill, but these are minor operations. And we are looking for, we have, operations still has their handful filling license positions. Most of our custodial positions have been filled. Operations continues to look for an engineer 2 position at Lowell and Myers, some second shift engineers at Denfeld and Lincoln Park. And we want to give our kudos to the building operations staff as they've done an excellent job pulling off duties this summer. Our buildings look great and we want to thank them for that. Do we have any questions for our, on our facilities departmental report? Great.
One quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Teresa? Just about facilities. Sorry. Just, I know that we've been working really hard related to some of the questions that came up in the past month related to facilities scheduling, and I know we've made some improvements in that area. Do you want to just speak to that really briefly with like the basketball, and we've seen some improvement, or would you prefer to?
No, I can speak
Thanks.
to it. Thank you. I apologize for being late. It is, yes, thank you. So we have worked really closely with community education as well as our facilities team to ensure that we have coverage. And part of that is the staffing, but a lot of it is movement of staff, current staff. And so we've been working with the union closely. We also have some new job descriptions coming forward. One that you see on the agenda tonight related to having a position that floats so that we have more flexibility to move staff around. So all those things kind of combined, we're able to provide more access, probably not as much as maybe we've had in the past, but we are still working towards that to try to ensure that we can have the community be able to utilize our spaces without putting undue hardship onto our staff as well.
Thank you for that update, and I appreciate the district's willingness when our community has concerns and wants something from us or has problems that they come forward and we are responsive to them. So I appreciate all of your work. Thank you.
Thanks, so do I, and that's why I was calling it out, is just because I know that the team worked hard to lean into it, and we're making improvements. There's still a ways to go, but we're seeing some great effort and great improvement.
Great. Any questions, Member Oswald, Member Kirby?
No.
All right. We will move on to the Technology Department report. Would love to hear Bart's summary.
Thank you. For the month of September, everything was actually increased. Our receiving of emails, we had 1.5 million emails compared to last month of 737,000. The rejections of emails was up as well. Spam folder, 50,000 spam emails went in the folders, people's user folders. 9.7 thousand were identified as phishing. Let's see, 14.2 thousand were identified as spoofing. Zero emails were identified as malware, which is good. We did have some phishing that actually caught people. Roughly 10 users gave up their credentials. We noticed that right away. We changed their passwords. We worked with them, sent them some cybersecurity training for those people. So our Google accounts, we increased our Google accounts to 10,760 versus last month was 8,400. Our storage also, actually, I think that was a typo from last month. I think our storage is up a little bit, but I think it should have been, shows it's gone down on there. File sharing was increased. Suspicious login attempts also increased. Failed login attempts also increased. For E-rate bids and RFPs, we have none out there. Our tickets that we have, this month was, or last month was 14,801. Last month was, or the previous month was 1,000. Tickets were resolved was 1,539. Last month was 767. We had 385 tickets remaining open. Today I looked and I think we're at 316 open tickets. Remaining summer projects, we're still working on the DSC boardroom. I say we're 95% done. We have like one camera that is out there, and they still have some glitches that make their screens flicker. District-wide, the $2 million classroom upgrades, that's 99% done. I think we have 4 rooms left. Merritt Creek, Chester Creek, Lester Park, I believe we have left to do. The Lester Park Loop Interactive Play System is installed and done. Then I just shared Google's carbon footprint on increased services for utilization for this month versus last month.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that after we have some of those, our credentials are then, credentials given up in a way that they shouldn't be, that it's quickly noticed by our technicians and that there's some education that follows that, so I appreciate that piece. Are there any questions?
I want to know what spoofing is. I know what phishing is now. What's spoofing?
Well, they're just going to be tricking you to give up something, in your email. Phishing is giving up your credentials. They may be doing, it's like, hey, go buy a credit card or a gift card for me, stuff like that. That's a real common one it starts at they mask as the principals, and they send it to the staff saying, hey, we have a secret party for so-and-so. Can you just go out and buy some gift cards? Don't tell anybody and give them to me.
Yeah.
So.
Are there any other questions? Oh, yes.
So I really appreciate your reports each month, and as we're working on our referendum, you've done, so much of what you talk about is related to things that we have with ESSER-funded spending, like putting in new smart boards, everything. Just very, very briefly, what will be the effects if we don't have that funding moving forward, and what will be the effects if we do? Just maybe a minute each.
I know continuing to upgrade our classrooms, we roughly have 250 classrooms left to do at the secondaries. That would be put on hold. I mean, the technology in those classrooms is from 2010 right now. So pretty much everything has been done in the classrooms except for our secondaries. We did all the elementaries this last 2 years. For our blended learning with our district Chromebooks, that would increase or would have to extend the life of those from the 3 to 5 years that we're planning to keep those until they're not working anymore. So that would really impact the blended learning one-to-one in there.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you. And thank you for your comments on what our technology infrastructure would look like if our referendum is not successful. Moving on to our transportation report, we have some challenges with staffing. So we're continuing to have those challenges, working hard to fill positions for drivers and helpers. We give thanks to our transportation supervisors. He's in charge of managing our staff as well as learning routing. And then it looks like he has to fill in on routes. So we appreciate that. Our buses are having some issues due to age and rust, but we're getting them back to where they need to be. We've given 2 borrowed buses back to Voyager, as we are back to having a couple of working spare buses. That's great news. And yay, we have our garage door openers and assigned spots, so our buses can now be in the bus barn.
Up until now, you've seen them parked here, but
Yes.
now they'll be able to drive them right in.
That's great. Yay. So that is our transportation report. Any questions or comments on transportation? As we come back to, that is complete for our business services report, and we'll come back to HR. So Director Severance, what do we have going on in HR?
Always a lot going on in HR. You'll see from the report, which I always like to see, is there's more hires, as you'll say as well, than there is resignations. So lots of hiring going on in our non-certified staff. You heard it in the facilities report that we are almost full with our custodian staff. We are, and I mentioned this, I believe, last month, we are working on how do we skill up custodians to fill those engineer positions that we are still short of. But trying to get some additional work with that. We are in the process of verifying all of our staff assignments in our software that houses all of our staff information, making sure their assignments, their budget codes are correct. We're meeting with principals to ensure that everything's in there and just making sure that we have the staff that we need for different areas. We are in the process of doing certified staff lane changes. Yesterday, a couple of us went through those. This is for the certified staffing so they can achieve a different level of pay. We processed 52 and we still have a small stack to go through, and they have to be received by the 15th. So that's what we've received to date. We expect we'll probably have another 20 to 30 coming in. So lots of our staff taking advantage of upping their education so they can move along that process. And then the last thing for the general department is that we are working on finalizing Laserfiche so that we can get all of our backlog of personnel files as well as our current personnel files into an electronic filing system. And we're working through the last pieces of the bids on that so that we can move forward and get those scanned in. Part of that work, if you've ever been there is a locked cage at our Garfield facility that is stacked full and full and full of personnel files from ever. So really excited to have that where they're easily to retrieve electronically, and it'll just allow us to be better on retention schedule as well.
And I'm assuming once that's all loaded up, that's all searchable.
It is.
That's good.
Yes, it's
Okay.
searchable, and then it does automatic retention. So not that there's a lot of personnel files that you can discard of, but there are some, and we can put an automatic processing in for that so that it will always be on top of our records retention piece. Benefits team has been out going to visit on sites, meeting with teachers and other staff that have questions about benefits, just to kind of get out there and answer any questions, not only for new employees, but current employees if they have any questions. They started on October 4th. I believe they've already been out to 3 sites, and then we'll continue through the month of October to go out to the rest of them. And they'll also plan to do that as we get into the early spring, in case people are having questions, especially as we get towards that retirement time. They are they're working on open enrollment, and as a result of that, we are also looking on a potential for enhancing our dental benefits. So the open enrollment starts in early November for a first of the year change, and that is all of our benefits with the exception of our health, which is cycled in the summertime. Our hiring updates, we're still very limited on the certified staff, and most of those are long-term sub, or someone has taken another position within the organization. So there's only 3 openings there. You can see the non-certified. We are looking for bus drivers as well as bus helpers. Again, child nutrition, but we're only down to 8 openings now, which I think is really good. Maintenance, and you'll see the 10 that I have listed there and kind of what they're inclusive of. Again, most of those engineer positions are the ones that we're really trying to skill up our current staff to do. And then always seeking playground and cafeteria monitors for the elementary schools. We've been putting a big push on that, and you'll see that also in our hourly rate sheet. We've tried to enhance the wage a bit so that we get more people to want to do that. And still seeking paraprofessionals. Lastly, the contract negotiations. We have 1 unit that will be voting next week, which is actually this week, Thursday, on a tentative agreement. And actually earlier this week, finished up the DUIA again. They'd had a change in leadership. So although we had a TA, there was questions with the new union leadership coming in, so we met again to kind of confirm and answer any questions because of that transition. So we're hopeful that they'll be voting on that as well, so that we may have two more contracts coming to you in November. And then we still work with the principals and education directors on finalizing the negotiations with them. We have met with the teachers just to work on some of our subsets of language that we've been talking about, not yet into negotiations, but working on some of those collaborative labor management processes on some of our common interests. And then the integration specialist, which is new this month, reporting, we've scheduled now for the end of October. So moving right along.
All of this is great work. I just want to highlight this. What do we have? We've posted and filled 243 openings for this school year, with almost 100 of those positions filled with external applicants. So I think that speaks to our quality as an employer to work for. So I want to thank you for that, because I know you've been working hard on those processes, so thank you. Are there any questions?
One comment.
Sure.
Just want to say thanks for all the work that you're doing. I think when we think about our 3 goals of supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems, we see many systems improvements here, from the microfiche recording to our ability to fill positions. Also, some of the postings. I see advertisements now. Sometimes when I'm on Facebook, I'll see Facebook advertising for Duluth Public Schools, because social media knows who people are and can target it. So I think that that's really another critical piece. And also, I think sometimes we talk sometimes about the shortages being, staffing shortages having effect on things, which is still partially true, but quite often it's also a lot of, illness, and that COVID is still an issue sometimes. And so occasionally we'll have a number of people out at the same time, and so that sometimes can be problematic. But also with the negotiations, I know that, it says that we're focusing on topics of interest. So in some people might be saying, well, it seems like we're going slow with negotiations. I would say that's partially true, but I would say that really seems to be a trend around the state right now, that the teacher bargaining units are wanting to take longer a little bit for this. And I also we've clarified with Ethan and others that this is not intended as stalling on our part, that we're willing to move forward more rapidly too, but I think it's a mutually agreed upon moving forward.
Thank you for that, and I like to think of us as intentional, not slow. We're very intentional these days, and I like that. Member Kirby, Member Oswald? Good? Great. We will move on to 2 recommended resolutions we'll have at the board meeting next week. Acceptance of donations to the Duluth Public Schools, and we have a wide number of donations that are graciously given to us from our community partners to our public schools, including donations to Denfeld, Lakewood, Lower MacArthur, Piedmont, and Stowe, and they're ranging from school supplies to snacks to all sorts of different things, so we appreciate our community lifting us up. We have another recommended resolution, which is an acceptance of grant awards to the Duluth Public Schools, and we have some great grants that we're accepting from the Ordine Foundation, Cal Harris as the author or contact for Laura MacArthur Historically Black Colleges and Universities trip. I just want to lift this one up. It's for the 2023 Historic Black College and University and Civil Rights History Tour, and the Ordine Foundation is going to help us cover the cost of the hotel and food, so we're very gracious for that grant. We also have the Arrowhead Library Association that is providing funding, that covers registration for each of our media specialists for the 2023 Minnesota Library Association Annual Conference. We have much appreciation to the Arrowhead Library Association that allows our media specialists to go ahead and get the professional development that they need, so we thank the Arrowhead Library Association. The Lester Park Foundation is granting money to the Lester Park Spanish Club for a part-time program coordinator that will help coordinate that club at Lester Park, and we are appreciative of all of those grants and donations. Do we have any comments? Awesome. Moving on to what we're going to see on the consent agenda, we have our HR staffing report that can be located by the public on our board book. So we have our staffing report. We also have 2 new job descriptions, one for the second shift floater custodian position that Superintendent Magus talked about earlier. That helps us make sure we're responding to the needs of our community so they can get into our space and get some great physical fitness for our students, and then also a job description for the HR specialist. So Director Severance, would you like to comment on those?
Yes, you're absolutely correct with the second shift floater custodian. We've worked with the union on this actually over several months. It's kind of come up and gone back down a few times just as other stuff has been prioritized. But when we talk about wanting to get additional staff and have some flexibility, we both agreed with the union and the district, this was a necessary movement forward. It did go to the Civil Service Board last week and was approved there, so the final approval then is through this board, and we can post for those positions, and that will allow us to have that additional flexibility in that second shift custodian position. The HR specialist job description is actually the result of a reclassification request from 2 HR assistants in the HR department, and they are the 2 that actually serve in our hiring roles. One is primarily for non-certified staff, and the other is for certified staff. When we lost our HR manager last fall, and for 6-8 months had not replaced it, both of those HR assistants took on some additional duties that after we went through it, and they were processed out of class, so they were compensated for that. And after we looked through what the duties they took over comparative to what the HR manager role was, we determined that it's probably better suited to sit with the HR assistants, but their job description didn't really reflect that higher level of work that they were doing. So they requested a reclassification. It was reviewed by myself as well as their union, and they put together a nice kind of structured, here's what additional work that we have been doing, and this was the result to create a new job description for them. And this has also been agreed with their union as well.
Great, and then, just so I'm thinking correctly, did we hire an HR manager as well, or those?
Did.
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
Charlie Cook.
Charlie, okay.
So he
just wanted
started
to
in
make-
June, and what it's actually allowed, because the specialists continue to do that work and at that higher level, it's actually allowed for our team and specifically for me to be able to have Charlie do different level duties that are probably help the whole department move forward rather than signing offer letters and those type of things. So really being able to raise that position as well to do kind of the higher level work.
Good, I'm thrilled to hear that. I know that you've taken on additional responsibilities in the past year, so anything we can do to sort of pull some of those responsibilities off your plate, I'm always happy to see, so thank you.
And I always, believe in job enrichment for staff, no matter where they're housed. And this just was the opportunity that we had because we needed the work done and there was no one there to do it until we did hire Charlie Cook. And they really just both jumped in with eager desire to learn more, and they've really taken on great. As you can see by our numbers, they're doing a great job managing our staffing.
That's great. Are there any questions on the 2 new job descriptions?
No, but I have an HR question. On the staffing report, there were a couple of categories. What is intermittent leave? And there was another one, presumed resigned. I haven't seen those before. so-
Great question. Intermittent leave is a component of our Family Medical Leave Act. So they can take a continuous leave or they can take intermittent. So depending on the condition or the family situation, it might mean that they need a day off here and there because of their condition. And so that's the difference really between an intermittent leave and a full-time leave, is that they do still work part-time. And the other one was presumed resigned, which means that we had an employee that, after a certain period of time, depending on the bargaining unit, just did not call or show up for work. And each bargaining unit has a different timeline, but then they're presumed resigned under their contract if they don't show up for certain periods
Okay.
without communicating.
I had a follow-up question too, but I can wait for Member Kirby. It was towards the bottom. I can ask my question while you're looking at that, in that, I know previously we would see leaves processed, on the staffing report for a couple days at a time. Does this eliminate the need to do that and update, specific days, or are we gonna continue to see when those employees take their intermittent leave?
You would, for the intermittent, we would just show that it's an intermittent leave, and because it is sporadic, and we wouldn't necessarily, we'd have it on the report as they're continuing to be on intermittent leave, but we wouldn't necessarily have the specific dates. Does that answer your question?
Fine, I think it just streamlines the process, from what's been practiced previously. That's the way I see it. If that's the case, I hope that is the case. It makes your job easier.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Member Oswald and Member Kirby. Moving on to finance, our financial report. Executive Director Zunich, is there anything of note in this finance report?
Thank you. We've been working through some student activity accounts and right-sizing. The Skyward system does not roll over account balances, so we've been going through that. So we've changed some numbers in Fund 79 in revenue and expenses, but overall, our revised budget is still showing to the good over expenses, so I'm happy about that. I've provided the ESSER spending so far, and I broke it down by program on the bottom left-hand corner. So we've spent $735,284 so far. And so we're on trend to, fulfill the balance that we have for ESSER 3 for FY '24. And I'm still giving you to the right, the bottom right there, our extracurricular. I'm showing our revenue and our expenses. That's our student activities. So I'm still providing those numbers. They're part of Fund 1, but that was requested, over a year ago, and I'm still going with that practice. So that's the budget summary. We're still under audit in finance, and Sheila Stevens is really taking the lead on that, doing a great job. And so we've come up with a good process too for the audit, and they've been on site twice, and they come back one more time at the end of October. And then, everything has to be to MDE by November 30th, so we're still working very hard on it.
Great, thank you. And I think I signed I remember seeing the email now, but I can't remember if I signed it.
You replied to it.
Okay.
So- Yes, thank you.
Whew, all right, good. Are there any questions on our financial report for Executive Director Zunich? Great, okay, and moving on, I believe that, where am I at? The attachment is pending, but for the board meeting, we will be looking at an hourly substitute pay wage, hourly substitute pay rate wage increase for FY '24. Is this what you spoke about earlier,
It
Executive
is, and I
Director?
actually do have the attachment.
Great.
If you'd like to see them, I can hand out.
Love to. And if you do have a copy on email, it would be great if we could shoot it over to Member Oswald.
Can you hand them over? Can you also give them, they're 2 pages, yeah. I don't, on my laptop, I do not have an electronic copy, but I can.
Snap a picture and text it to her.
Okay,
Oh, that'd
that
be
would
great.
Thank you.
Member Oswald, the superintendent will look for a text from him. Thank you.
Are those both Karen?
Yes. No, Community
Oh,
Edge,
okay.
no, we're good, yeah.
So there'll be 2 separate pages, and it's actually just for the aesthetics to be able to see them on 2 separate pages.
Thank you.
So what you'll see in the red is any proposed changes. The other thing that I didn't read, but I'm going to highlight it for you now, and I will read for the board attachment, is previously it used to say hourly substitute, depending on where you looked. And I see there's still a few substitutes kind of coded there, but we don't really distinguish that being any different. If I hired hourly, we're assuming they're filling in, which kind of same as a substitute. We don't really hire substitutes other than we through teachers on call. So that's kind of where I've drawn the line for substitutes are through our teachers on call, our hourly hires. Whether they have a schedule or not, they might just be a periodic, we can call them and they come in and fill in. But I think it's confusing because of the substitute. So moving that to all kind of count as hourly. Primarily, we've increased most of these positions by $1 an hour, and that really, I think, is minimal to try to keep up with other workplaces in Duluth area and to try to be somewhat competitive. There are a few that we've raised, you'll see it like $1.50. Our cafeteria monitors, that is one thing that our principals has really requested to be able to pay them a little bit more. And it is an unusual schedule of time, so we wanted to make sure that we could recognize that. And it's not an easy job with kids and playgrounds, and then the weather comes and the lunchroom kind of, so we wanted to make sure that we appreciated that. And then the only other real big difference here, other than that $1.50, is you'll notice under the building operations, I'm unsure why the retired fire person 1, which is an old title, but it is still listed in our contracts, was paid an hourly rate rather than just part of the maintenance contract. So we just want to make that consistent through all the maintenance positions.
This looks great. I think it's important that we can increase our pay so that we can attract the best people to watch over our kids. So I appreciate this. Are there any questions, Member Oswald or Member Kirby?
Yes.
Great.
Could you possibly just go over the budgetary process in determining how our budget can absorb these increases in pay, and how we're going to afford that in the future? Just kind of go over that. So, because, being on the board for nearly 8 years, I remember a time when it was all doom and gloom, and asking for a dime raise was a huge debate. And so I'm just curious, for the public and for my own information, how we can justify, raising wages across the board, knowing that we need to, and I'm supportive of it, but just knowing how our budget is going to absorb it too in the future.
And I'll have Executive Director Severance answer that in detail, but I think part of it is related to the referendum as well, because when we think about just the staffing needs that organizations have, that we have no choice but to pay a decent wage, or a better wage for bus drivers, a better wage for our custodians and others. And so that has created some of the financial pinch on our budget that has led to us needing to move forward and ask the community for support with those 2 referendum questions. So that is partly just to make sure that we can survive and continue to pay those rates that are being required by the outside. But I'm sure you have other information you can share.
Yeah, what I want to just point out, although this looks like a lot of employees, because there's so many different titles, we don't have really that many hourly employees. And of the hourly employees we have, they are maybe work between 13 and 20 hours, if not less, a week. So the impact, and I'll let Simone speak to kind of that budgetary component, but the number of hours and the additional dollar, I don't believe has a huge impact because there's not that many staff that we have in that position. So although it looks like a lot on paper, I think in order for us to be competitive and also for us to be able to provide our other employees support, I think we have to, and again, I don't think the budget impact is that great because there's that few number of people that actually work in these positions, but I'll let Simone speak to that.
So, thanks, Teresa is correct. First of all, we have to be competitive. We can't bring anyone at $13.50 an hour to help out when we need help. It's, they're not benefit eligible, and the amount of hours we need is minimal as well. So it's not a big impact. And this formality of this sheet is something that should be brought to the board really every year to approve any wages that are not part of a contract. So while to Teresa's point, it looks like a lot, it is a minimal impact on the budget.
I think that's a really important narrative to make sure the community is aware for those that are paying attention, because, yeah, this looks like a lot, and if you consider that, you know, there's multiple people in multiple positions, but it could look like an exorbitant amount, but I understand exactly what you're saying, that it's something that's necessary in the job market today, and I just want to make sure that we acknowledge we're in different times than we were in the recent past, and that, you know, you weren't just lucky to have a job in ISD 709, but now every organization in town is, you know, finding harder and harder ways to, or it's harder and harder for them to find ways to fill their positions, and pay is one of those equalizers that we have to meet, but we also need to ensure that we have the financial resources to continue to do so. And that is a huge ask in the referendum, and I understand that. So thank you for that clarification for everybody.
Thank you, Member Oswald. That's a great question. Moving on to our fundraisers. We have some great fundraisers here done by the fifth graders at Lakewood so they can make their trip to Wolf Ridge. Lincoln Park, the music department. So our Lincoln Park music students can go out and have some great experiences. The library at Ordine East, the Ordine East Student Council, and then at Ordine East, we have a school store. So this is great to see. Moving on to our bids, RFPs, and quotes. We have a request for an RFP here for, what am I looking at? Architectural services is RFP 315. Superintendent Magus or Executive Director, any of our executive directors want to comment?
Sure, I can comment on both of those RFPs that you see, well, all three of them, but I'll start with the first two RFPs. Those are both RFPs that were open today, and honestly, I don't have the results, but those are for architectural and engineering services for our revitalization of the Duluth News Tribune building, trying to get ahead of that so that once our purchase is final, we have the pieces in place to move forward for renovations and be able to utilize that space for our staff and our programs.
I'd like to say thanks to the board. I know that based on allocation, we do have the right to work with somebody and then continue contract with somebody. But I think quite often it is better for us to go through an RFP process. It just creates better transparency, and it also gives competition an opportunity to share their perspective, and also can drive rates lower based on, even if we end up going with the same provider, sometimes they'll offer a better rate. So thanks to the board for asking the question about going to RFP with our work, and we enjoy seeing who's out there and who can provide the best for our kids.
Do we have any questions, Member Oswald or Member Kirby? Great, okay. And then we have no contracts, change orders, or leases. We have, moving on to miscellaneous informational items. We have quite a list of expenditure contracts that can be looked at. They run for quite a few pages here. And then moving on to our no-cost contracts from Winona State. We have Duluth Adult Education, PAVSA, and then also Nystrom's and Conflict Resolution Centers are a no-cost contract. Executive Director Zunich's favorite thing to see is our revenue contracts. And we have one from Northeast Services Cooperative so that we can provide some licensed school nurses. And then lastly, we have a grant application. We have quite a few grant applications from the Northland Foundation. For preschool and Head Start, we have again some generous grant applications from Arrowhead Library Association for our media specialists to provide them with some professional development opportunities. Also, some from Hospitality Minnesota Education Foundation. This is great, out at East, to help subsidize the industry-backed culinary arts and restaurant management curriculum, help to purchase industry standard equipment and supplies, and to ensure a safe food lab, ! Help to purchase ingredients and support for instructor training. So those are great. Let's see, we also have some coming in from, oh, no, I already said those, right? Yes, okay. I'm pulling it together, I promise. And then lastly, we have a great guide for our boosters, to go ahead and give some guidance to our boosters as to what they're obligated to do and what supports they can expect. And I think that's everything. Does
I
anyone-
have-
Yes, go ahead, Member Oswald.
I just want to get clarification, from Director Zunich, that, we have, what kind of control do we have over booster clubs existing? Or is this just, can they exist out in the community, with or without our approval? And does this approval, reference guide only refer to when they're donating money to us? Or do booster clubs have to get our stamp of approval in order to even exist? I guess is really what I'm asking.
That's a great question. So in essence, no, they can operate, but they do need to fill out a document with the athletic directors saying that, letting us know that they're going to be actively involving the district or the site, that they're going to be doing some fundraising. And so this document applies to everyone, even existing booster clubs right now. And it's very similar to what we've had, but we've just, fixed it up a little bit. We've added more language as far as protocol and, how our booster club should be doing their reporting and whatnot. We've suggested their financials on how they report that, but the language we removed was the one that said that the district may need to ask for reimbursement, copies of reimbursements, revenue, or disbursements. So the Department of Education, our attorney, and the state auditor said we do not need to do any oversight. So I think that was a really important sentence to pull out, and the school board suggested it. So now we have, our athletic directors are thrilled with this. We're even going to be putting a link now on our website with Adele Welland's help, our communications officer. And anyone will be able to go to the link now and bring up this document. They'll be able to bring up a Google Doc that they need to fill out and letting us know what their federal ID numbers are and what the intent is of their club. And so we will now know at all times who our clubs are in the district. So do they have to get our approval? Not necessarily, but we do need to know that they are, they're active with our district.
And are we responsible for them holding their end of the bargain, such as should they fail to file their taxes or to maintain a nonprofit status and that kind of stuff? Does that have anything to do with us?
It does not. We have our suggested legal compliance that we've suggested to them. If they fall out from the IRS, that is on their booster club. We do not have anything to do with it. Now, having said that, as part of our yearly audit, we will be going in to check the IRS status. It's available to anybody. And so we will make that as a part of our yearly process, just so we know. But do they have to have that to operate? Yes. So if they're clearly not operating within their IRS status, then they have a problem.
All right, thank you for that.
You're welcome, thanks.
Great, do we have any other questions? That looks like we can wrap up our HR Business Services meeting at 5:24 this Tuesday. Thank you to everybody. Have a great night.